My best friend snapped. "We don't need you." My best friend snapped. Her family joined in. "You're always in the way." I stayed silent, just walked out. This morning, my phone was full of missed calls. 29M, never thought 20 years of friendship could end with 4 words. "We don't need you." But that's exactly what happened last Friday night at Sarah's birthday party. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. Even took the day off work to help set up. Sarah and I had been inseparable since we were kids. The kind of friendship where you don't knock before entering each other's houses, where your problems become their problems, where you're practically family. I should have seen the signs earlier. The delayed responses to my texts. The way she'd suddenly become busy whenever I suggested hanging out. The subtle eye rolls when I'd share stories about my new job. But I chalked it up to stress. She'd been dealing with a lot lately, and I thought being a good friend meant giving her space while still being available. The party was at her parents' house, the same backyard where we'd spent countless summers as teenagers. I arrived early with the custom photo album I'd been working on for months. 20 years of our friendship documented in pictures and inside jokes. I was genuinely excited to surprise her. But the moment I walked through the gate, something felt off. Conversations seemed to pause when I approached. People who usually greeted me warmly gave polite nods instead. Sarah's mom, who'd always treated me like a second son, barely acknowledged my presence. I found Sarah in the kitchen, surrounded by her cousins and some friends I didn't recognize. When she saw me, her expression shifted, not to the usual smile I expected, but to something that looked almost like annoyance. I approached with the photo album, telling her I had something special for her birthday. That's when she turned to face me fully, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine irritation mixed with what looked like years of pent-up frustration. She told me she needed to talk to me privately. We stepped into the hallway, and that's when everything unraveled. She started by saying she'd been thinking about our friendship lately, about how things had changed. I tried to interrupt, to ask what she meant, but she held up her hand. She said I'd become too dependent on her, too needy, always inserting myself into situations where I wasn't wanted. I was stunned. I asked her what she was talking about, reminded her of all the times she'd called me when she needed someone, all the late-night conversations, all the support I'd given her through her breakups and family drama. That's when she said it. "We don't need you." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there, trying to process what I'd just heard. Before I could respond, her brother appeared in the hallway, followed by her parents and a few cousins. It felt orchestrated, like they'd been waiting for this moment. Her brother chimed in, saying I was always in the way, always showing up uninvited, always making everything about myself. Her mom, the woman who used to pack extra lunch for me in high school, nodded in agreement. Her dad, who'd taught me to drive when my own father was too busy, just stared at me with disappointment. One by one, they took turns. I was told I was clingy, that I never took hints, that I made Sarah feel obligated to include me in everything. Her cousin mentioned how I'd ruined Sarah's graduation party by being too emotional when I gave my speech. Her other brother brought up the time I'd shown up to their family barbecue uninvited, conveniently forgetting that Sarah had specifically invited me. I wanted to defend myself, to remind them of all the times I'd been there for their family. When Sarah's grandmother was in the hospital, I was the one who drove her there every day for 2 weeks. When her parents were going through their rough patch, I was the one who listened to Sarah cry for hours. When her brother needed help moving, I was the one who showed up with a truck and spent my entire weekend helping. But standing there, surrounded by people I'd considered family, I realized that none of that mattered anymore. In their minds, I'd already been written off as the pathetic friend who couldn't take a hint. I looked at Sarah one more time, hoping to see some trace of the person who used to be my best friend, the person who used to call me her chosen brother. Instead, I saw a stranger who looked relieved to finally be getting this off her chest. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I simply set the photo album on the hallway table and walked out. I could hear the party continuing behind me as I got in my car, the sound of laughter and music that I was no longer welcome to be part of. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying the conversation, trying to understand how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd become the villain in a story where I thought I was the loyal supporting character. Update 1. I spent the weekend in a haze, alternating between anger and self-doubt. Part of me wondered if they were right. Had I really been that oblivious? Had I been forcing myself into situations where I wasn't wanted? I went through our text conversations, looking for clues I might have missed. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something else was going on. Sarah had been going through a rough patch with her long-term boyfriend, and I'd been the one encouraging her to work things out instead of just agreeing that he was terrible. I'd also gotten a promotion at work recently, something that had been bothering her since she'd been struggling in her own career. Monday morning came, and I decided to focus on moving forward. I deleted Sarah's number from my phone and unfriended her on social media. If they didn't need me, then I didn't need the constant reminders of what I'd lost. But Tuesday morning, my phone started buzzing. Missed calls from Sarah, from her mom, from her brother. Text messages that I didn't bother reading. I let them all go to voicemail. By Wednesday, the calls had intensified. Sarah's mom left a voicemail saying there had been a misunderstanding and asking me to call back. Sarah's brother texted saying they needed to talk. Even some mutual friends started reaching out, asking if I was okay, and saying Sarah seemed upset about something. I ignored them all. If they wanted to cut me out of their lives, they didn't get to decide when I came back. Update 2. Thursday evening, I finally listened to one of Sarah's voicemails. She sounded different, smaller, less confident than she had at the party. She said she'd made a mistake, that she'd been going through a lot and had taken it out on me. She asked me to call her back so we could talk, but I wasn't ready to talk. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started reaching out to other friends, people I'd neglected because I'd been so focused on my friendship with Sarah. I made plans for the weekend, started accepting invitations I would have previously declined because Sarah might need me. It was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. I realized how much of my social life had revolved around one person, how many opportunities I'd missed because I was always available for Sarah's emergencies. Friday came and went without me thinking about Sarah's birthday or wondering what I was missing. Instead, I went out with college friends I hadn't seen in months. We had an amazing time, and not once did anyone make me feel like I was too much or in the way. Update 3. This morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. Something had clearly happened, but I wasn't sure I cared enough to find out what. I finally called back one of our mutual friends, Jessica, who'd been trying to reach me. She sounded frantic when she answered. She told me that Sarah's boyfriend had broken up with her over the weekend. Apparently, he'd been cheating for months. Sarah had found out at her own birthday party, right after our confrontation in the hallway. Her family had rallied around her, but she kept asking for me. Jessica said Sarah had been calling everyone trying to find out why I wasn't answering my phone. When Jessica told her that I'd mentioned being hurt by something that happened at the party, Sarah broke down completely. Apparently, Sarah had confessed to her family that she'd been taking her frustrations about her relationship out on me, and that the confrontation at the party had been her way of pushing away the one person who might have seen through her fake happiness. Her family, who had always loved me, were horrified when they realized what they'd participated in. Jessica said Sarah's mom was beside herself with guilt, that her brother had been trying to call me to apologize, and that Sarah herself had barely left her room since Sunday. But here's the thing, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no urge to rush over and comfort her. Just emptiness where 20 years of friendship used to be. Jessica asked if I was going to call Sarah back, if I was going to help her through this like I always had before. She reminded me that Sarah was going through the worst time of her life and needed her best friend. I told Jessica that Sarah had made it very clear that she didn't need me, and that I was finally listening. I said I hoped Sarah would be okay, but that I wasn't going to be the person she called when her life fell apart anymore. Jessica was quiet for a long moment before asking if I was sure. She said everyone makes mistakes when they're hurting, and that Sarah was clearly sorry. I thought about it for a moment, about all the years of friendship, all the good memories, all the times we'd been there for each other. But then I remembered standing in that hallway, surrounded by people who were supposed to care about me, being told that I was unwanted and in the way. I told Jessica that some words can't be taken back, and some actions can't be undone. I said that Sarah had shown me who she really was when she was under pressure, and I believed her. The calls have continued throughout the day, but I've stopped answering. I've realized that this isn't about revenge or making Sarah suffer. It's about finally respecting myself enough to walk away from people who only value me when it's convenient for them. 20 years of friendship ended with "we don't need you." But maybe, for the first time in my adult life, I'm finally learning that I don't need them either. I'm not the same person who walked into that party with a photo album full of memories. I'm someone who knows his worth, someone who won't accept being treated as disposable, someone who understands that real friends don't ambush you in hallways and tear you down in front of an audience. My phone is still buzzing with missed calls, but I'm not answering. I'm finally putting myself first, and it feels like the most honest thing I've done in years.